Hello and welcome to the No Huddle Podcast. I know it's been a while. It's been right around a month. This is usually my time when I take a break right after free agency, and as we're heading into the NFL draft, I like to just relax for a little bit, step away from football, and just enjoy. I've been at home with my family. I've actually taken a few trips to Europe, so it's been really fun. I've enjoyed my time off, but now I'm back. I'm excited to start diving into football, and we have so many things to talk about. Of course, we have the draft in T-minus, 50 hours from when I'm recording this? Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. But before we get to that, we have to talk about Dexter Lawerence. We got to talk about the A.J. Brown news coming out that he's likely out and on the way to New England. And we have to talk about the Trent Williams extension. So we're going to get to that. Then we're going to dive into the first round. So with that being said, let's dive straight in to the first thing. And we found this out right around 2 days ago. Dexter Lawerence getting traded to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, when we have some drama like this with a player, it's very rare that it gets resolved as quickly as this one did, especially a player of Dexter Lawerence's caliber. For an example, this is the A.J. Brown. He's been whining about wanting to be out since the start of last year, and yet here we are, and he's still not technically traded yet. But Dexter Lawerence, we heard some rumblings about him being unhappy a bit last offseason, but not enough to actually affect his play or for it to be any real decision of whether or not he's going to be out there. But then that started to intensify a little bit over the last few weeks. And the question became of what is it going to take? Because Dexter Lawerence, when he is out there, and when he's himself, is the best defensive tackle in football. Which, remember, when we're coming off of Seattle dominating the Super Bowl and running through the NFC with that interior defensive line, with Leonard Williams, with Byron Murphy got in there, it became a question of what is that going to cost, especially because now we know the NFL is starting to trend towards needing really great guys on the interior. And we know it took the 10th overall pick. And for Cincinnati, if you look at the board, number 10 was going to be a very difficult spot for them to get what they want, because Cincinnati needs just a massive overhaul of the defense. They were one of the worst units in the league last year, and they need somebody who's going to spearhead a change. And Dexter Lawerence can absolutely do that. And because a real defensive playmaker, we know that there's going to be right around 6 guys in this draft who can come in and turn around the defense eventually, right? And be the main guy. We have Sonny Styles, we have Arvell Reese, David Bailey, and Caleb Downs. And Caleb Downs is a safety, so to his extent of him being able to shake up the defense is a little bit to be seen. I really didn't think any of those guys were going to be there at 10. If you look at the way this board's going to shake up, I imagine for Reese, Bailey, and Styles, number 9 at Kansas City was always going to be the farthest any of them were going to drop. And even then, I really don't think they get to 9. And there had always been a question of, we knew Cincinnati was getting the 10th pick, and it looked like they were going to have the hardest time on draft day. It seemed like they were going to have to kind of pray for somebody to want to trade up with them, and that was going to be their best spot. But instead, they turned that 10th overall pick, and they turned it into Dexter Lawerence, who, if you're looking at his peak, which is right around 2022 to 2024, he is just an absolute shit wrecker. There's no way around it. Absolute game changer. You have to double team him, sometimes even triple team him, and that wasn't enough a lot of the times. He was the best nose tackle in football. There is this very well-known, famous stat that I think a lot of people that allowed people to understand just how good he was, and that he had 110 pressures right around there from that nose tackle spot from 2022, or I think from 2023 to 2024. And the next highest was 30. So to say that he is unique is a pretty big understatement. Now, with that being said, as much as I am praising Dexter Lawerence and I know how good he can be, this trade is a gamble. And the only reason he's even available and not signing one of the largest contracts for any interior defensive lineman in NFL history is because he had a down year last year. He really didn't look like himself. It wasn't just the sack totals. He went from a 10 sack guy to a half sack guy. But it wasn't even just that. You watched him play in the run game. He was starting to get washed out of plays. As a Niners fan, I think back to the game where we were playing, it's Niners-Giants, week 9, and Dexter Lawerence was you couldn't feel his presence in the game, especially when the Niners had a backup center end, where we're playing with really poor guards, and yet he had no impact in the game. So that was something where I remember heading into that, I was like, how can we stop Dexter Lawerence? I was looking into it as much as possible. And then I watched the game, I'm like, okay, so that was all for nothing, because he kind of got bullied by our backup center. So I'm going to have to take this all into account. There's a reason why he is available right now. And really didn't look the same. There's some reports of him being frustrated last year, and if you want to point to that as to the reason why, or him coming in overweight, then sure. But it's definitely true that those issues are still definitely there right now. It's just that I think, personally, the gamble of how good he can be is worth giving up that 10th overall pick and, trying to get him back to what he was a few years ago, because he was healthy all of last year. It wasn't like some major injury that caused it, so you're not concerned about that. I think he just needs to be bought into an offseason program. He needs to be bought in to his team having a chance to go far. And with Cincinnati, I know they have a lot of issues, but you have the right quarterback in place. You don't have the right coach in place, but you have great receivers. We know the offense is going to do its part. It's just a matter of, can their defense not literally be a bottom 3 unit in the entire league? Something that'll also help him being bought in, he signed a 1-year, $28 million contract extension, which I think a lot of people were surprised by. It's like, why would you give him a 1-year deal? You just trade the 10th overall pick. But it's because he already had 2 years left on his deal. I'm going to go to Sport Track right now and see what his contract is looking like for the foreseeable future. Let me just search Dexter Lawerence right here. So right now, his contract is, it's not even up yet. Okay. But it's like right around 3 years, $70 million. We'll see how that all ends up getting spread out, but he's under team control for the next 3 years. And if you're wondering as to, okay, all of that makes sense, but the upside of the 10th overall pick, having a potential franchise cornerstone for the next 15 years, I still don't know if it's worth it to trade that for Dexter Lawerence. I think the sole and the biggest, or not the sole reason, but the biggest reason that they did this is because Mike Brown, the Bengals owner, is 90 years old. Mike Brown has never, under his ownership, which you can have so many critiques about, he is by far one of the worst owners in the NFL. But that being said, Mike Brown has not seen a championship. I think, I'm going to go on a limb, I don't think he cares what's going to happen in the next 3 years. I don't think he cares if Dexter Lawerence is gone in 3 years, because there's a chance he's not around in 3 years. So if his sole goal is just trying to get his team to a championship under his ownership one time, then yeah, Dexter Lawerence is a great move. Because if you can get Dexter Lawerence back to himself, then you're going to have one of the best players in football for the next 2-3 years. You just got to figure out how to get him back in shape. And then, you also have to fix the rest of the roster, because Cincinnati has quite a bit of issues, but fair enough. Moving on to the Giants side of it. I mean, what a haul they got. I think when the reports came out, nobody was expecting the 10th overall pick. When I saw it was the 10th overall pick, I was assuming they were sending Dexter and like one other pick that they were sending, maybe like their second, to get up to 10. But getting just the 10th overall pick is such a luxury. And it's an offer that they really could not refuse, because if they weren't going to be able to fix like Dexter Lawerence being disgruntled with the team, not a bad concession to get the 10th overall pick. Looking ahead to Thursday, it opens up pick 5 for them completely. If I was them, I would really want to trade back from 10. And from there, there's going to be plenty of suitors, because I think there's going to be plenty of suitors because there's about 15 actual first round talents this year in the draft. One of those teams is probably going to want to go up from, let's say, like 20. Like a team like the Chargers could potentially go up. I think I could see like Philadelphia's there at 23. There's a bunch of teams right around that 20 range that might want to trade up for a premier first round talent that, could definitely do some business with the Giants. Dexter Lawerence is not going to be replaceable this year, for sure. He's going to be sorely missed. If you look at his on-off EPA ranks, again, even though this was a down year, you look at his on ranks when he's on the field, the Giants defense was 7th best against the pass, 8th best against the run, yada, yada. But then you look at his off ranks, and that's when you start to see 30th best, or 31st, 30th, 29th. And you start to see a lot of the flaws that we saw out of the Giants defense last year. He's a necessary double team on every rep. You're not going to replace that this year in the draft, unfortunately, with where the Giants are at. But if they're able to hit the pick, they're going to get 5 years of a cap-controlled player that they can then give the second contract to and, keep that cap number even lower for those years. And barring a Jackson Dart ascension, that's kind of what they need. This roster is nowhere near, they're not going to contend in the NFC East next year. They're not going to push around Washington or Philadelphia or Dallas. They're still very much in that 4th spot, so letting the roster develop, getting some younger guys, some younger picks, that's always going to be the smarter move. As for what they do with the 5th and 10th pick, if they opt to stay there, I would love a Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs haul, if possible, because their D-line's already so good. You already have Brian Burns, you already have Abdul Carter. And there's no interior defensive lineman I'm taking with the top 10 pick. So going Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, this was a big thing that the Niners used to talk about, is having a leader on every layer of the football field, right? Because you have the first level of the field, second level, and third level. And right now, their first level is great. You got Brian Birds, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter. But the second level, Giants linebackers are rough. Micah McFadden's is a solid ball player. But Sonny Styles would definitely take that to a whole nother level. And then you go to the third level. They got Javon Holland back there, but if you add Caleb Downs to that, you're adding a true stud on every level of the football field. I would love that. I would also could see them going Jordan Tyson and really helping Jackson Dart. I mean, Jordan Tyson has some injury risks, but man, Malik Neighbors and Tyson, especially if Tyson gets over the injury stuff, oh my. Like, that's one hell of a unit. I'd also see them potentially trading out of 10 and grabbing, there's this amazing guard out of Penn State whose name is very confusing. So I'm not going to even bother to try and pronounce it, but he's a stud. You can grab him too and help the offensive line. There's a bunch of ways they really can make this just such a great trade for them. Okay, moving on. We have A.J. Brown's quote, as by Schefter, likely trade to the Patriots post June 1st, which I didn't know you could say that in the report. It was like, oh, he's probably going to get traded after June 1st. I think that trades work a little differently than signings in that you can't say that they're done with that and then like have it be a post June 1st process, which is weird. I don't know why they do that, but this has been like a very expected trade. I've clamored for this on the podcast since the start of last year, but we didn't get it. And if for the Patriots, you really have to find a way to make that trade with your 2028 pick. You really don't want to give up 2027 first. Their schedule is already particularly brutal, as in I don't see them winning the division next year. I know it's early, but I would be surprised. And then plus, the draft for 2027 is super loaded. You don't want to give the Eagles 2 first-round picks on that draft. So we'll see if they can get it done for 2028 first. They have a lot of leverage in this, in that I don't think A.J. Brown's going to show up to the facility next year. So the Eagles kind of have to get a deal done. So that means next year they're going to head into 2027 with A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs, which not a bad unit at all. Or not 2027, sorry, 2026. They managed the Stephon Diggs personality really well last year. So I don't imagine them having too many problems with A.J. Brown and his stuff. I know that A.J. Brown can bring quite a lot of problems as far as being a diva receiver, but he's worked with Mike Vrabel in the past, and when he was with Tennessee, I don't remember there being that many issues, which, again, it's been a while, so maybe I'm just remembering incorrectly. But I trust Mike Vrabel and his ability to handle A.J. Brown because he did it before. And then if you're just talking about the fit on the field, like Drake May looks really good with Kayshon Boutte, who is the same style of like a large receiver, great deep threat. And right now, with A.J. Brown, you're getting the best deep threat out there in terms of, his size, just has strength. Like, there's no player in football outside of, like, Mike Evans who has the frame and size and power of an A.J. Brown. And that's Mike Evans, a couple years ago, not now. Combining Drake's deep ball ability, which I think I talked about on the podcast so many times over the course of last year, he has the best deep ball in the league. It's just pinpoint accurate. If you look at any advanced metric in terms of his deep ball, like completion percentage, it's not close. He's like unbelievably good. So you're combining him with, which is one of the best deep threat receivers in the league. And it's just such a match made in heaven. There's a reason why I've wanted this trade for so long. It's just going to come down to like managing A.J. Brown's personality. And Mike Vrabel is going to be so much better at it than Nick Sirianni is. And for the Eagles, I get going for the ring last year, even though there were plenty of signs that team was not going to work out. I get it. They won the division. They wanted to push for it. But I think the writing on the wall for A.J. Brown leaving was really clear. And I think this was a rare mistake from Howie Roseman. I think getting a first plus at the deadline and then using that pick in this draft would have made your life so much easier next year and the year after, potentially, if that pick ends up being a 2028 pick. And now the alternative is you're having to wait quite a while to get a return for A.J. Brown because you have to do this trade post June 1st. Like, if I was them, I really would have done it at the deadline. You could have created one hell of a bidding war because right now it's just the Patriots who want him, so there's no leverage you have. But if you do it at the deadline, there would have been a ton of teams who wanted him. You would have had the Patriots get stuck in a bidding war. You could have had the Colts at the time were really good. You maybe could have had them going in a bidding war. and maybe having them spend those picks on AJ Brown instead of Sauce Gardner. I don't know. There's just a lot more options you could have had. But instead of waiting to the offseason and now there's just one suitor, Howie Roseman kind of screwed himself. I don't know. And then I think the Patriots also would have been willing to give quite a bit, because who knows, if they head into that Super Bowl against Seattle with AJ Brown, it would have been a lot closer of a game. It'll also be odd from the Eagles' perspective to see how this offense runs for the first time since, I want to say, Jalen Hurts' rookie year in 2020 and 2021, where they don't have one of the best receiving cores nor one of the best offensive lines in the league. I don't imagine the line's going to take a large step up from last year, because last year they were right around middle of the pack. It was a huge reason why the Eagles really didn't look like themselves all year. And they didn't make any additions to change that necessarily. So I don't imagine them coming back right into form. So for the first time in a really, really long time, there is so much pressure for Jalen Hurts to step up and be the main driver of this team. And we'll see if he does it. I got to be honest, I don't know if he can. I've been pretty critical of Jalen Hurts in the past on this podcast, but I'm not going to say that he can't, because they got the new OC in Sean Mannion, and I'm curious to see what he does with Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts has taken a lot of criticism this year in the offseason. There's been a lot of scathing articles about him. We'll see if any of that, fuels him, gets him better, maybe changes some of those tendencies in terms of coachability and stuff like that. And we'll see if he can actually be the main driver of this team. All right, moving on. We got recent news about Trent Williams yesterday as well, and that his contract holdout stuff is over. He signed a 2-year, $50 million extension with, I want to say, 37 guaranteed. And it was inevitable that this was getting done. The Niners had no leverage. They were not going to be able to go into next year with Videric Lowe as their starting left tackle and try and make a Super Bowl push. It's just not going to work. So Trent Williams had all the leverage in that. We knew that was getting done. The only caveat to that is I am surprised to see it get done so early. I was concerned that this was going to drag late into the summer. I don't know if you remember the last time Trent Williams had a contract dilemma like this. It ran all the way into August. I was right around the same time as the Brandon Ayuk stuff. I was excited to see that this got done in April, which means he's going to show up to OTAs. He's going to be there at training camp, and he's going to have a better chance of being a better football player this year. And I think Trent Williams was able to, or a big part of that negotiation that got it done, is that Trent Williams was able to give up some of his AP or APY, how much he gets paid per year for more long-term security, which he gets with this deal. Because right now that deal gives him 2 years, $50 million, which is less than Laremy Tunsil got. So I'm surprised by that. I think it's less than Sewell. It's less than, who's the other big tackle that signed recently? Rashawn Slater. So yeah, it was important for him to get it done. Get that long-term security, which, great for him. I think he's up to $400 million in career earnings and $250 million guaranteed, which is just amazing. Hell of a player. He deserves the money. And Trent is still absolutely one of the 2 or 3 best tackles in football, despite being 37 years old. He's truly an ageless one. And I don't think this changes the Niners draft approach really at all. I think that if they really do like one of the tackle prospects, there's been a lot of rumors about Caleb Lamu, who is out of Utah. So if they still like Lamu, I could definitely see them going Lamu. I don't think this changes anything like that. I also think that if they necessarily don't like any of these tackles, there's no pressure for them to go for one, because they're going to have Trent for the next few years here, which should give them time to ideally find their replacement. Okay, that was all for the offseason news stuff. We're going to pivot to the draft here. And because we got round 1 on Thursday, which is, I think, one of the more exciting round 1s, at least for me, that I've been looking forward to, because we have so little in chalk, right? The only thing that we know for sure is that Fernando Mendoza is going 1 to the Raiders. That has been chalk since, January? So other than that, we don't know anything about this draft. Anybody can go anywhere. There's the whole David Bailey, Arvell Reese argument at 2. There's where's Jeremiyah Love going to go? There's where's Cardell Tate going to go? It is so exciting. And we also have this thing where there's about 14 actual first round grades I would have on players here. And there's 50 second round grades. So the depth on this draft is insane, meaning that we're going to have a ton of trade downs. And I think we're going to get quite a few trade ups here too. Because if 1 or 2 of these guys fall, because there's so many premium wide receivers and tackles in this draft, teams are going to be really, really aggressive to try and get their guy. There's also quite a few differences in terms of like stylistic approaches, if that makes sense. Like we have a guy like Caden Proctor at tackle who's this just like gigantic physical athlete, but he's still quite raw and he's going to take some time to develop. So a team like Philadelphia, that sounds like kind of their bread and butter. But we also have different tackles that are great for like the zone scheme with like Caleb Lamu, and it's everyone's flavor is really in this draft. So there's going to be a lot of push for those guys to try and, or for teams that really like a particular player to go up and try and get him in this draft. So I think that's why round 1's going to be so much fun this year. So here are some things that I'm going to look, or I'd keep an eye out for heading into round 1. And we're going to start with something kind of obvious, but something that I didn't really like know about until a few days ago. The draft clock is 8 minutes now for the first round instead of 10. And I think they said that, we're just doing this to make the draft more entertaining to watch, which, yeah, fair. It really did need it. But that has these like giant ramifications in terms of how these GMs are going to take an approach to the draft. So much so to where I'd say expect some movement pre-draft. I think that teams are going to start talking a lot more about what their plan is or what they want to do training up, and they're going to talk a lot more to each other. I think part of something like this is why the Dexter Lawerence trade happens a few days before the draft instead of maybe on draft day. Or, I think we could be in a spot where teams are going to pre-negotiate deals beforehand for like, okay, I want to trade up here if this guy's available or trade down if this guy's available. It could be to the point where, you see next pick and then immediately you see that like classic color change, team change, and it's like a trade has been made and we all get super excited. But that might like happen like right away because some of these teams are going to talk about beforehand like, hey, I would give you this and this if this guy's here. So I think I expect a lot more pre-draft negotiations. This is something that got confirmed by John Lynch listening to his press conference yesterday. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really, really fun. Moving on to the next part of this, I really would not take Jeremiyah Love in the top 5. Jeremiyah Love is like probably the second or third most talked about prospect in this draft because this is in no way a critique of Jeremiyah Love, the football player. Jeremiyah Love is one of the better running back prospects we've had in a while. I think that I like him more than Genty because Genty had such a large concern about the amount of carries he had and the competition. But Jeremiyah Love, while he did take, quite a few carries, he did not have the same tread in his tires like Genty did. And also he was a hell of a threat in the pass game and the run game. He has no flaws really in his game. If you look at like his raw athletic score and you compare it to the first round running backs of the past, he is like right up there in terms of just like being an elite athlete, by far the best pure player in the class. But my God, if you were looking at the amount that the 3rd overall pick and the 4th overall pick gets paid, Jeremiyah Love is not a discount as a drafted player, which that might sound odd, but I'll explain. So if Jeremiyah Love gets drafted to the Cardinals at 3, his rookie contract, remember, rookie contracts do not change based on the position. Like a first-round quarterback will not make more than a first-round running back if they're picked at the same spot. So what that means is Jeremiyah Love, as a rookie, is going to get like 4 years, $50 million from the Cardinals if they take him there, which would make him the 7th highest paid running back as a rookie, which means that you get no discount. You get no premium surplus value out of your draft pick. He is a high-end running back, and you are paying him like a high-end running back. You get no discount. And that is the big reason why teams win games, or teams win Super Bowls. We talk about how, for like a big thing is when you have a great rookie quarterback, you do everything you can to push all your chips in because he's only going to be on that rookie pay scale for so long, right? It's trying to, when you don't have to worry about such a large cap number at a certain spot and you're getting a surplus value out of them, that gives you room to add to the rest of your team. And I think the loss of having such a high pick and not being able to get any surplus value out of it, that's just brutal. It's really, really brutal. And not only that, since it's such a high pick, like if your whole thing is, I want the best running back in the NFL, you could call the Falcons and offer them pick 3 or pick 4 for Bijan Robinson, and they probably do it. So it's just, I don't know about the value of taking a running back that high. I think the best way to think about it is Kenneth Walker this offseason signed for right around $13 million to the Kansas City Chiefs. And the question is, would you rather have Kenneth Walker and the 4th overall pick, or just Jeremiyah Love? And I think for me, the answer is I'd rather have Kenneth Walker, especially if I'm trying to build, like, both the Cardinals and the Titans are both teams that are not going to contend anytime soon. So being able to add a defensive stud like Arvell Reese, like David Bailey, like Caleb Downs, you can add any one of those guys. Sonny Styles is another one. Or being able to add a premium tackle, like getting Francis Mauga for 5 years on a rookie pay scale. I just think that's so valuable when you're trying to build your team up. And you're trying to help, in the Titans' case, you're trying to help your young quarterback in Cam Ward. Rather than we're going to go after a running back, regardless of how good that running back is. Again, this is no diss on Jeremiyah Love as a prospect. Wherever Jeremiyah Love goes, if they have a half-decent offensive line, he's going to be a stud in the NFL. We already know that. It's just not worth the risk. And there's a really great video on this. I think I can link it in the comments that kind of explains this better than I can. This whole idea of surplus value, Jeremiyah Love just doesn't fit it at all. Next thing I want to talk about. We're going to talk interior offensive line, so don't get too bored right away. But this Penn State guard, I'm going to pull up his name because I'm talking about him. I feel like I should. This is going to be difficult to pronounce. Viga Ione. He is, again, out of Penn State. He's one of the best guard prospects we've seen in the last few years in terms of how well he is in both the run and the pass game. I think he's a better pure prospect than Gray Zabel, and that's more just because Zabel's level of competition. We've seen out of him that he can do this out of Penn State, and Zabel is already an amazing guard, and he's going to be an amazing guard for the rest of his career. So having this guy in the draft is a great test to see how much teams actually value guard. Because, again, pure talent-wise, we know this guy's a slam dunk, Ione. We know he's a slam dunk. We know he's one of the best players in the class. He's a hell of a run blocker. He can push guys around. And he didn't allow a sack in college. But he's a guard. So let's see if teams have changed their value on guards a bit. Because what did we see work in the NFL last year? Interior defensive linemen were the name of the game. The Patriots had 2 studs. The Seahawks had 3. And both those teams ended up in the Super Bowl. The Broncos had Zach Allen. The Rams have Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk. Like that's what's running the league right now. And having guys that can block against those guys, in theory, should be really valuable. We'll see if that's what ends up actually happening. I also think another thing that could sway this is Tyler Linderbaum resetting the center market at $27 million a year. I also think that's going to apply to guards. Like, I think there's some things here that could end up with him going a lot earlier than people expect. Moving on to another prospect, Kenyon Sadiq. He scares me a bit. I'm getting Kyle Pitts vibes, and really not in a good way. He's a hell of a threat in the pass game, no doubt about that. But he's such a work in progress against the run that I think it's going to scare some teams away. I would not be surprised if Kenyon Sadiq falls to the 20s. Just because teams are like, well, if I'm going to draft a tight end that high, they better be able to block. Next thing I want to talk about here, regardless of your opinion on Ty Simpson, which I'm not the biggest Ty Simpson guy. I think that he's not worth the premium draft pick that you'd have to give up. I think he kind of plays more like a bridge quarterback than a franchise quarterback. But I think he's a near guarantee that he's going bottom of the first round. I really don't think he's going day 2. And that has nothing to do with Ty Simpson as a prospect. I think it has more to do with how important that 5th-year option is. Remember, we were talking about with Love, how important the value of a rookie pay scale is on, every player. But you're talking about quarterback, that's the most important spot. So being able to get the 5th-year option is so, so important on a quarterback. And somebody's definitely going to trade up for that. I really think somebody's going to trade up for that. If you also look at the teams that they could trade up with, the classic example is the Eagles trading down from 32 to like 35. Or not 35, but like 50 with the Ravens for Lamar Jackson. That way the Ravens could take him at the top of the first round and get that 5th-year option. I really would not be surprised if the Cardinals send over like a 6th-round pick to the Eagles and move up 2 spots into the first round and take Ty Simpson at 32. Next thing I want to talk about, the impending receiver run we're going to see in this draft is insane, and one that we have not seen anything like for a while. The question is just where it happens, and I really don't know. That's going to be like one of the biggest things to watch on the draft. Is Cardinal Tate's going to get picked, and then there's going to be a bit of a break. And then somewhere, somebody's going to take their first receiver. Either that's Mekhi Lemon, either that's Jordan Tyson, either that's, what's the kid out of Indiana, Omar Cooper. It's any of them. And then it's going to start just one hell of a run. Possible spots where this run could start, if the Rams go receiver, then we could see the Rams, Ravens, and then probably not the Bucks and the Jets. Or probably not the Bucks, but then the Jets could get in on it. Like the Panthers can get on it. So there'd be a crazy run from there. Or what I think is more likely is as soon as the Chargers take a receiver, because they're going to in this draft. There's way too many receivers, and their need is so bad at receiver. As soon as the Chargers go receiver, we can start to see one crazy run here with the Eagles drafting an A.J. Brown replacement, the Browns grabbing a receiver if they don't go Cardinal Tate, the Bears grabbing a DJ Moore replacement, the Bills needing a replacement, the Niners needing, or the Bills needing a receiver, the Niners needing a receiver, the Texans even could use a receiver. So that run of receivers is going to happen somewhere, and it's going to be insane. And there's going to be a bunch of chaos for teams trying to trade up into the run. Like, be ready for that. But speaking of receivers as well, talking about Jordan Tyson here for a sec. He is such a fun, dynamic player. And pure talent-wise, he looks like the best receiver in the entire draft. Like, he has the highest ceiling. I think even higher than Cardinal Tate. But his injury concerns are pretty real. If you're just looking at what he's dealing with right now, or if you're dealing, not right now, sorry. If you look at his injury history from college, he had a multi-ligament tear of the ACL, MCL, and PCL. He had a fractured clavicle, so he's missed time every year. He's had hamstring strain. So it's a question of which team is going to be willing to deal with those injury risks. And for his sake, I really hope it's not the Giants and he has to play on MetLife turf, but that 100% could be the case. We'll see. He's an incredibly intriguing player, and I think everybody should keep a close eye on him. This also is, I'm going to jump into another point about receivers here. I have a lot about receivers because this draft is so crazy when it comes to them. Receiver speed and like the 40 time might be the most overrated thing I've ever seen be discussed. If you look at all of the alpha receivers right now, if you like go to the receiving leaders for the last few years, all of them ran like a 4.5 40. Puka Nacua was, a slower guy, but he was an incredibly physical player. Jason had some, he didn't run a slow 40-yard dash, but he wasn't like one of these blazing guys. And I think we get so caught up in like, what's their 40 time? How fast can they be? Like, what's their top end speed? That we miss that it's not really one of the more important things. As long as you have a guy who is fast enough to be able to break out of routes well, as long as they run routes well and they're physical, those are the two big things. Is how physical are they, especially. It's starting to be really, really important. Like, receiver strength is huge. How willing is your guy to go over the middle, take a hit, and keep running? I think that's something that a lot of fans need to start focusing their attention on. And I think a player that highlights that really well is Mekhi Lemon. Mekhi Lemon ran like a 4.5 40, and it started to push some people down on him. They're like, I don't know how fast he can be. But Mekhi Lemon's a freaking beast. He attacks the ball at the highest point. He's such a threat one-on-one. He can run incredible routes over the middle. Like, Mekhi Lemon has everything you can want in like a number one receiver, and I really like him. And I'm really scared the Rams are going to get him. And I do not care that his 40 time is 0.2 seconds slower than it would ideally be. Last point I want to make about the draft here before we close, and that's expect teams to follow in the Seattle Seahawks' footsteps, and Mike McDonald in particular. Hybrid large DBs were once seen as like giant misfits, but ever since Kyle Hamilton with Mike McDonald, and then now Nikem Nworie with Seattle, they are now absolute commodities. There is going to be a strong desire for those like big nickel guys that can come in and you don't have to take them out when the other team goes heavy. And it just creates such a strain on the offense. And those guys are going to go, in my opinion, full rounds earlier than expected. Not picks, rounds. I also think like that applies to nickel corners too. You want like a stronger, more physical nickel that you don't have to worry so much about taking in and out of the game. If you're looking for two names in particular, Trident Stokes, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, and then Keontae Scott. Stokes out of Arizona and Keontae Scott out of Miami are two guys I would really keep an eye out, because those are two guys that can come in and be those versatile chess pieces. Okay, that was all of my notes on the draft. That was covering the offseason. I want to thank you so much for listening if you're still here. It's really greatly appreciated. And yeah, let's have a phenomenal draft. I will be back here Thursday night. It's going to be a little different. I know it's a little odd with the lighting. We are not used to filming during the day, but we'll be back Thursday night after round one to break down all of that. And we'll probably be back on Saturday to break down the rest of the draft and the impending chaos that follows. So I want to thank you so much for listening, and I hope you guys all have an amazing rest of your day.